Hey, I'm Jeff Straw. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got a quick tip for the photographers out there, and I'm going to walk you through how I handle my files from off the SD card through Lightroom and Photoshop, and as well as my sorting techniques that I use when I'm dealing with large scale shoots for clients. And so I thought this may be handy for some of you guys. Okay, so let me open up Lightroom. This is this is an old picture of my son, but let's go here to our catalog view, and he's gonna hate me for showing these. God, he was so little. So first thing we want to do is import some new photos. So we're gonna go here to the import dialog, import photos and video. Personally, and again, this is all my personal sort of workflow. I take files off my SD card, copy them to my external drive, and put them in a folder. So if you take a look here at my drive structure, here's one of them. If you look here under original photos, I have everything labeled in batches by year and then by the name of the shoot. This one is a more typical client drive for me. Original photos, clients, and then here's the clients, a selection of clients from last year, again labeled by year. Once they're not really in my queue anymore, they're over a year old, I offload them to a non-SSD drive to save space on the SSD drive, because these SSD drives work really well for Photoshop and Lightroom to hit constantly. They're also fast enough for you to edit video files and not have them on your local drive to free up space and resources for your machine. Okay, so we're importing some photos. I found an entire shoot that I had never edited, so I figured I would go, don't ask me how or why, but I did. And so it's called 2021 R6 Hate. This was the first day I bought the Canon R6, and I took it around Upper Haight and shot a bunch of stuff at night, and I've never edited these photos. So when I'm going through import, so a couple settings. One is build smart previews. This is really important, especially for those of you that are editing on a laptop. What this does is it allows you to still edit the photos even if your original files are not connected, i.e. you have an external drive and you don't have it with you. Lightroom will still let you do all of the editing with the smart preview. You will not be able to export the final render, but you will be able to do everything else, including sorting, batching, color correction, all that good stuff. So this is a really handy feature. The other thing I do is I don't click this make a second copy to. I'm also applying a develop setting on import. This is just, it says 35mm, but essentially what this does is it just auto tracks to see if it's a lens that Lightroom recognizes, and if it is a lens that Lightroom recognizes, it will automatically apply that lens correction. That's the preset that I built. If you know you have a workflow like that, it's really handy to just do that. So those are the couple things I wanted to show you guys with file handling over here. In the essence of time, I'm going to, actually, we'll go ahead and just import the whole batch. Day one with the R6. So right now, first thing I do is, let's say that this is for a client or a personal shoot like this, is I go through everything and I use the star system. And so simply by hitting numbers 1 through 5 on my keyboard as I select an image, whether I'm in the library mode or in the develop mode, if I hit the number 1 on my keyboard, it gives this thing a 1 star. And essentially I go through multiple passes of an entire shoot and sort of whittle down and cull. I hate that word cull, but basically I'm culling the shoot. And so anything that remotely strikes me as like, okay, this is good, it might need work, but it has some potential, I hit with a 1 star. I'm going through this shoot and I'm probably going full screen to look at these and saying, okay, this is interesting, this is a 1. Maybe this is a 1. Let's call it a 1. This one I don't like. Yeah, I think, oh, this is nice. Okay, so we're going to also try to do something with this guy. So we're just going to get this as a 1. So let's say we've gone through our entire batch. We've filtered out what we feel are the best as number 1s. Now, if I'm working with a client, This is an integral first step, and at this point, I go through and I color correct and do some exposure adjustment on all of these 1 stars. So I do all of that in Lightroom. Here in the develop mode, I'm not going to walk you through an entire editing process, but obviously, before I would show these to a client, I would edit all of these to the best of my ability on a quick edit, get them close and get a color grade that I like for the shoot. And then I would go through with my client, looking through all these 1 stars to decide with them what are they going to purchase out of this bundle, and all those would get first marked 2 star and then 3 star. Essentially, we do one big first pass. Usually I've got about 100 photos to show them. Anything they like gets 2 stars as we go through, and then that usually whittles it down to about half, and then I say, okay, here's the price structure. Do we want to cut a few more things? And if so, we go through one more pass and we mark all those 3 star. So then here in my library, and I can show you guys this on a client shoot I just did with Connor. So here's Connor's shoot. It was 539 photos. If we look here, the 1 star batch was 115. So him and I walked through this 115. Out of that, we whittled it down to the 2 stars, which was 27 photos. And if you look, that's this batch here. And then the 3 star photos, and this is what we really outlined as his final choices. And this should be about 15. It ended up being 17 shots. This starring process can be really, really handy. Okay, now here's where it gets cool. So let me go back to the non-client stuff to show you just this hate batch. So these filters that I'm using over here are also really nice. It lets me immediately filter that set down to only look at the phase that I'm in, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, or 4 star. Now, let's just say, let's just put a quick edit on this guy. So let's say we're off to the races and this has become a 2 star. The client likes this, or I like this as a creative. In my workflow, the 2 star means this is now ready for Photoshop. So I don't do any skin retouching. I don't do any real fine detail editing in Lightroom. I do all of that in Photoshop. And this is where hopefully this tip is really powerful for you guys. So right here within Lightroom, when I'm selected with 1 photo, I can hit Command E, which is the shortcut for photo edit in Photoshop. Okay, so what this is going to do is, without finding the file, without finding the raw, it's just going to straight from Lightroom tell me, okay, I'm going to open this photo in Photoshop. So I just hit Command E, it pops open the photo with whatever Lightroom edits we've done. So now this guy's open in Photoshop. Let's like really kind of tweak this thing. I'm gonna put a gradient map on this just so that we can immediately tell that this is the one that we've edited. So you can't see this is off screen right now, but I'm selecting gradient map. Go in here and choose my colors. We can keep the darks in the sort of blue vein, which is kind of true to the photo, but in the lights, I want to make this a little bit different. So let's kind of make it yellow. And then let's give it some body in the middle. All right. I don't know that I like this, but it's clearly obvious a different photo now, right? Okay, so here's the beauty. We don't have to export this as a TIFF file. We don't have to export this as a Photoshop file. We do save it. But the nice thing is once I click save, so I'm just going to Command S, that save triggers Lightroom to say, oh, this is ready to suck back into our workflow on Lightroom. And so now when I go back to Lightroom, and it might take a second, haha, there's the new version, right? So Lightroom knows that this is an edit of the photo that we just opened. And if you notice here, it follows the same star ratio. So this is the new one here. I don't know why the thumbnail's not working yet. There it goes. This is the new one here, and it's also labeled 2 stars, which is very handy. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I got to make sure that I sort of collect this the right way and rate this the right way. If you have any keywords, those should also come over. And now what I would do is, if this was my final edit, I would go ahead and take that to a 3 star or 4 star, depending on how many rounds I had done with my client. And I can very quickly then use this for exporting, etc., etc. The nice thing is this file now lives. If I go here to show file, show in Finder, I'm just right clicking. So here's my folder called 2021 R6. Hey, it automatically puts this Photoshop file right in line with these other raw source files for the rest of my images. So it keeps everything in the same place, which is also really handy. I don't have to worry about that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are stars, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0 are color codes on the sorting over here. So if you look at these flags here, those can be accessed in the hotkeys with numbers. So if I wanted to change the label to red, yellow, green, blue, I'm hitting 6, 7, 8, 9. I use this red flag to indicate that this is a Photoshop file that I've done a lot of layering on and I haven't flattened it yet. Meaning the client may come back still and want something a little bit different, and I want to leave those layers accessible for me to go back into one more round of editing if I want. But those files become very large. So if you've got a multi-layer Photoshop file on a raw image, those can easily be, 100 meg files. And so I mark those with this 6 flag, or the red flag with the number 6, in order to let me know once this has been finalized, I can go back through and flatten down this Photoshop file to save room on my sort of archive drives. Because once I've locked in the edit, I'm not going to need to go back. But again, until I get client approval, sometimes I do like to have that flexibility. Then when I'm exporting, I can multi-select. I could shift click all these, or if I wanted to, I could just option click. Generally speaking, I would do my filters here. So I would go to 3-star. Here's everything that's ready for export. Then I go up here to export and I select where I want to put it. If I'm doing any watermarking, which I really don't do anymore. Generally speaking, if this is a web-based project, I will export it at 75 or 80. If it's going to potentially be a print project, I'll export it at 100 as far as the JPEG quality, but that's really all I do, and I just choose my folder here, and then I click export. So let me step through this all real quickly one more time as a quick summary. Off of your SD card, drag those files over to a hard drive or an external hard drive on your computer. Here in Lightroom, we click import photos. We do not click this make second copy. We leave the files where they are. We use this, build smart previews. In Lightroom, we do our first pass of culling using the 1-star method. Then on those 1 stars, we go through and do a quick pass for color correction and exposure adjustments, showcasing those to any clients and taking anything that you really want to finalize into a 2-star rating. Then we open them in Photoshop using this really handy Command E tool, do our final edits in Photoshop, save it in Photoshop. It comes back into Lightroom as a separate standalone file with the same rating as the original. 1 more star can be added to those so that that's a final edit, and that's kind of my system. So hopefully that helps. I really hope that this was useful, and if not, you're probably not still watching. So thanks so much for being here. Again, I'm Jeff Straw. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. Great to see everybody. Have a great week. Go create some photos.